Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about middle cranial fossa, and here at the side you can see the diagrammatic representation of cranial cavity showing anterior cranial fossa, middle cranial fossa and posterior cranial fossa. In last video we talked about anterior cranial fossa and now we will talk about middle cranial fossa. So let's start our topic with introduction. Middle cranial fossa is the central depression at the base of skull wedged between anterior and posterior fossa. It is deeper and wider than the anterior fossa and supports the temporal lobes of brain. It also contains multiple foramen for cranial nerves and major arteries. Talking about its boundaries, it is bounded anteriorly by posterior edge of lesser wing of sphenoid and the anterior clinoid process, as you can see in diagram. The hook-like structure is the anterior clinoid process and the lateral areas are by the lesser wing of sphenoid bone. Next boundary is posterior boundary, that is superior formed by superior border of petrous part of temporal bone. Here you can see the uh, upper region or the elevated region and the pink color bone, that is the temporal bone, is the petrous part of temporal bone, and it forms the superior borders of the middle cranial fossa, posterior border of middle cranial fossa, and in the dorsum celli is also there, that also contribute the posterior boundary of middle cranial fossa. Then laterally it is bounded by squamous part of temporal bone and the greater wing of sphenoid, as you can see here in the diagram. Next is floor, that is composed of sphenoid bone, that is body and greater wing of sphenoid bone and temporal bone. Now let's talk about bones that are involved in middle cranial fossa. They include sphenoid bone. Orange color bone is sphenoid bone in here in diagram. It forms the central part including the sella turcica. Next is temporal bone, that is pink color bone here, and it is the lateral part that houses the petrous portion with inner ear structures. Next is parietal bone, that is green color bone is a parietal bone. It is the lateral superior portion not on the floor but contributor of bounding wall. Now let's talk about key features of middle cranial fossa. First is sella turcica. As you can see here in the diagram, the depression in the sphenoid bone is sella turcica. It is a saddle-shaped depression on the sphenoid bone that houses the pituitary gland. It includes tuberculum celli, that is its anterior wall, and hypoglossal fossa, that is pituitary bed, and dorsum celli, that is the posterior wall of sella turcica. Next in key feature we have is optic canal. As you can see here in the diagram, they are just below the uh, midline to the anterior clinoid process. They are located anteriorly on either side of body of sphenoid bone. They transmit the optic nerve and ophthalmic artery. Next is superior orbital fissure. They are slit between greater and lesser wing of sphenoid bone. They transmit the cranial nerve number 3, 4, 6, and 7, and the superior ophthalmic 4, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and the superior ophthalmic vein. Next we have is foramen rotundum, that is posterior to the superior orbital fissure. It allows passage of the maxillary nerve. Next is foramen ovale, that is large oval opening transmitting the mandibular nerve and accessory meningeal artery. Next, we have a foramen spinosum in the middle cranial fossa. It's a smaller foramen transmitting the middle meningeal artery and meningeal branch of V3. Next is foramen lacerum, that are the jagged opening near the sphenoid petrous junction. They are largely filled with cartilage. An internal carotid artery passes over it after emerging from the carotid canal. Now let's talk about contents of middle cranial fossa. They include temporal lobes of cerebral hemisphere, pituitary gland that is within the sella turcica, containing internal carotid artery, cranial nerve number 3, 4, 6, and V2 and 6. Major foramen transmitting cranial nerves number 2 through 6 and key arteries. Now let's talk about clinical significance of this middle cranial fossa. They are pituitary tumor that may expand the sella turcica and compress the optic chiasma that can lead to visual disturbance. There may be epidural hematoma that often arise from trauma to the middle meningeal artery near the foramen spinosum. Next is cavernous sinus thrombosis that can impact multiple cranial nerves and threaten vision or brain function. Next is middle cranial fossa approaches neurosurgical corridor to access tumors or vascular malformation. Now let's talk about the conclusion of this lecture video. Middle cranial fossa is a hub of neurovascular crossroad and cerebral function, sheltering the brain's temporal lobe with forming the staging ground for some of its most important anatomical connections. With its striking architecture and clinical significance, it is a central player in both life and learning. So this was all about middle cranial fossa. Hopefully you liked the video. If you do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you for watching.